Well, I'm excited to chat with you. I'm sure you've
Yeah,
got some burning topics to discuss, but we can take this wherever you want. I'm an open book.
yeah, of course. I think we should start off with you explaining what you do exactly for your job.
Yeah, so I am a dating coach and matchmaker. I got started in 2020, and now I have clientele all around the world. When it comes to matchmaking and dating coaching, I would say most of my clientele are a combination of men and women. I specifically work with people who I would say are high caliber, high value individuals, people who are really successful in other areas of their life, but haven't been able to translate that success to their dating lives. Some of them are divorced, some of them have never been married and are looking to get married. Everyone's different, and that's what makes my job so special. And I also have a course for women called Manifesting Mr. Right, because I truly believe you can manifest anything in life, and love is included in that. So that is my little spiel.
So you give like one-on-one sessions
I
then
do
to
one-on-one
people who,
sessions. Yeah, I do one-on-one sessions from for my clients who like that, and then for people who they feel they would benefit from something that was a little less personalized. I have the courses, and in that on my website I have e-guides. Like I said, I have a course, so lots of different resources for people who are looking to get that head start in dating and feel like what they've been doing hasn't been working.
just wanted to note that if anyone has any questions that they want Nelly to answer, please comment on the feed
Yes.
and we'll answer all of them at the end of our conversation. Um, but yeah, I guess my follow up to that, the demographic question, because so much of your advice has to do with how to how to obtain a high value man, etc., which is defined by one of the aspects of that is, a high net worth or successful. So would this mean that most of your demographic that you work with is on kind of the older side, like let's say late 20s plus? Because as you probably know, it's not super easy to be successful like straight out of college or
Absolutely. It's very difficult actually to be successful straight out of college, and only a small minority of people are lucky enough and intelligent enough perhaps to be able to come into any level of wealth beyond what their typical age demographic would. Um, yeah, so actually my youngest client that I've ever worked with was I started working with her around 19 and a half, almost 20. She was she is an Orthodox religious Jew, and in that community, getting married at a younger age is very much something that is prioritized, at least in the community that she was brought up in. And so she was very adamant about finding a husband. And her obviously, and by the way, I don't select clients based on their net worth. There's a holistic process that goes into it. And high value women, I should mention, there's a different definition than high value men. So at her age, of course, she was not earning, six figures plus. But again, she didn't. That's not a criteria for my clientele. But she was a fantastic client, and actually, she's now engaged and getting married, and she credits me and my coaching for that. So it's been wonderful to see her success. And absolutely, to your point, a lot of my clientele are older. My oldest clients are older than 60 years old. So I really do work with a broad range of people. And the wonderful thing about coaching is it's so personalized to the individual. And I really try to tailor my advice, my methods to what my clients want. I don't tell people what they should want. I listen to, what their wish lists are, and we kind of work from there.
very cool. So did you go to school for something related to this?
Yeah, so I do have a master's degree in mediation, conflict resolution, and negotiation from Columbia University. I chose that major because I knew it would lend to my credibility in this field. And so much of that program is revolved around interpersonal communication and relationships. So I thought that was really important because, I'm 27 years old, and the first question I get asked is, what makes you credible? It's like, well, I have the pedigree. I also think that mediation in particular is very applicable to dating coaching, because if you think about what that entails, it's about finding common ground. And if you think about even what people say when they are talking about what kind of partner they want, it's all about what do you bring to the table. Well, that in itself is a negotiation. And it's not that I fixate on transactional relationships, it's rather that, you at the end of the day are coming up with a deal with the person that you're looking to be with, right? It's about what they bring to the table, what you bring to the table, and then figuring out if you guys are able to fit together like a puzzle piece. And so that within itself is a negotiation. I also have a certificate from Harvard Business School, and I think that just lends to the way I run my business more than obviously the coaching itself. And yeah, I have, experience as well, just between, getting feedback on social media, and I did communications in college. That was my undergrad at Miami. So I have a communications degree from there. And I think that has really translated in my ability to, find clients. And so it all kind of works together and fits together really nicely.
Awesome. What's your own experience with dating? Like, I'm imagining, maybe I'm wrong, maybe this has just always interested you, but I guess I'm personally wondering if like you've had certain like personal dating experiences that have led you to this field or
Absolutely. I started my social media because of my own dating life and because of my sister's dating life. At the time, it was COVID, and I had just gotten out of a short-term relationship. Um, and I was kind of looking for something to, put my energy into. I think for the majority of the year prior to COVID, 2019, I was very much on a dating spree, kind of monkey barring from person to person. And I felt like I had, quite a bit of personal experience that I could draw from. And all my, siblings and my siblings' friends would always ask me for advice. And so that was what inspired my, I guess, interest in this field. But I never set off, by the way, to become a dating coach. It organically happened. I started posting little advice videos on social media. And through that, I started, just organically taking clients. It never registered that it was a business. It was just, a hobby. I was working a full-time job at the time and still just kind of dating around. I used to blog actually a lot as well, Daniela, where I'd show like my experience, just like, meeting guys and, in different cities. And I just was having fun in my early, well, I guess mid 20s. And yeah, that kind of parlayed into where I am today. I ended up quitting my full-time job, graduating from that master's degree. And now, I have a business. So it's been an interesting journey.
that's awesome. So you're currently single or in a relationship?
I am single right now. So I just moved to LA. And I wanted to make sure that I didn't have anything tying me down before I moved. I'm not interested in long distance relationships at this stage in my life. I've kind of been there, done that, and it's not something I'm looking to actively sign up for. Of course, if you, happen to meet someone incredible and they live somewhere else, they have the audacity to live somewhere else, you're like, okay, I'll make it work. But for myself for now, yeah, I'm single, and I'm really happy at the moment, because it's just so fun to be in a new city, single, getting to explore. And I'm not, I wouldn't say I'm eager to find someone. I'm very preoccupied, but if the right person happens to come along, of course.
Do you feel like you are or will be following your own dating advice?
Yeah, I do follow my own dating advice. I think I always say women should look at themselves as a prize. And I certainly have learned over the years that, when you view yourself as a prize to be won, and you're also realistic about what you have to offer, I don't sugarcoat things to my clients. And so I certainly don't sugarcoat things to myself. Then I think it's a lot easier to go into dating with that perspective. And absolutely, I take my own advice.
Uh, so my next question for you has to do with the phrase or term high value man.
Yeah.
I think, we've heard parts of that or maybe that at some point in the past, but you use it a lot. And so I guess I'm wondering where you got that term from and I believe it was like four different aspects that someone needs to have in order to be considered a high value man. So where did that come from?
Yeah,
And
great
maybe you
question.
could say what those four factors are.
For sure. Yeah, I say there are four criteria that go into being a high value man. The first is a man needs to be earning a minimum of six figures or more for at least 3 years consecutively and consistently. And that is because women statistically are prioritizing men who are providers and protectors. And a man's ability to earn an income that would support his family hypothetically is a benchmark for that. So that's why, the six figures. And I think, the consistently and consecutively is really important as well in that, because you need to prove that you have the skill set. It's not necessarily just about the money. It's about being able to prove that you're not just going to have one good year and another year that flops. You're going to be consistently moving, in a positive direction income wise. And again, that's also because statistically and studies show women value socioeconomic status and prestige in men more than anything else. And obviously, there are exceptions to the rules. That is just the studies. That is just the generalization. So that's the first criteria. The second criteria is a man needs to be well groomed. Now, studies show that men value appearance in women more than women value it in men, but women still value appearance in men quite a bit. And so a man does not need to have a six pack. He doesn't need to be, that's not what I mean by well groomed, at least. For certain women, maybe that is a priority, but well groomed does not mean you need to have a six pack. It doesn't mean you need to be 6 feet tall. It means you can't look like a slob. And part of the reason for that, too, Daniela, is when you think about the men who are able to move up in the ranks in their careers, it is men who are presentable, right? If you're working at a company, I used to work at a Fortune 500 company, and the men who look like slobs, they weren't getting the promotions. It was the men who were showing up, their shirt tucked in, clean shave, looking presentable that were. And that is, I think, just something that you see in all aspects of life, right? And so that is why criteria number 2 is there. Criteria number 3 is that a man needs to be in a network of other high value men, because it takes more than just one to get to the top, and it's going to take more than just one to advance. And your network is your net worth. And by the way, that network doesn't necessarily just need to be men. It can be high value women as well. And another example of why that's important is if you go to an optometrist, okay, because you had a little issue with your eye, and they need to refer you to someone else. Well, the network of other doctors that they're going to refer you to is important, right? If they don't have anyone to refer you to, then that doesn't mean they're not a good doctor. It just means that they're not going to be able to provide you with the best possible care. So for that reason too, your network is really important. And then the fourth criteria is a man needs to be verifiable outside of his personal social media and personal website, because you need to prove that you are legitimate. And, hypothetically, if a guy is earning six figures or more, if he is well groomed, if he is networked, but he's doing illegal business or something shady, that's not legitimate. And that is not showing that he's a contributor to his community at large. And it also puts a woman at risk because, if a man is hypothetically in the mafia, right? And something happens where he gets caught, well, all of a sudden he's destabilized his family, his woman, and now, protection wise, financially, physically, they're at risk. And so that is why those four criteria are in place. And again, it all goes back to the men who are deemed the most desirable in the context of the sexual dating marketplace, which is really what's important here. When you ask women what they're looking for, usually they don't say, I want a low value man, right? I've never heard that. They say, I'd like to be with a man who's out earning me, six figures plus is usually the number you hear. Looking for a man who looks good, looking for a man who, has status. That's where the networking comes in as well. Looking for a man who, is legitimate. And so the dating marketplace dictates that definition. And there's no reason I have not seen a compelling enough reason um, to persuade me as to why that definition is not accurate to this day.
The two that I'm a little bit like about, the first one is the having to have made six figures for at least 3 years consecutively. because I mean, like, let's get real. It's competitive out there, you know what I mean? And like, I'm 28, my friends are, in their mid 20s to early 30s. Like, a lot of people are just starting out or launching off at
Mm-hmm.
that point.
Yeah.
So, would you say that to turn someone down if they're just getting started? Like, let's say just in this past year they got a big bump, like let's
Mm-hmm.
say 80K to 200. Is that not a good enough reason to like commit to this
Well,
person?
I just want to make one thing clear. I'm not telling people that they need to commit or choose high value men. I don't tell people what
Mm-hmm.
they want. I tell people what they can do to get to what they want. And, if someone doesn't want to date, if that's not a deal breaker or an issue or non negotiable for a woman, absolutely date those men. They're fantastic too. Those men, though, are called Henrys. Okay. They're not called high value men. A Henry is a high earning, not rich yet. That's the acronym. So,
Oh, and
yeah. So those men, and listen,
that's really funny.
and it is, it takes time to get to that point in life. But typically, I'm going to be honest, when women are talking about marriage material, they're looking for someone who's reached financial stability. And if a man hasn't reached that peak financial stability in his life, he's not probably going to be in a position where he wants to get married. Of course, there are exceptions to the rule. What are some exceptions to the rule? Religious people, yep. High school sweethearts, and then people who are just anomalous, right? That we just throw in there. So, absolutely, there are exceptions to the rule. And again, I don't tell people that they should date a high value man. High value does not mean you are better, doesn't mean you are more valuable in society. It simply means that in the context of the sexual dating marketplace, when you put two men who are equal in every other aspect side by side, right? Physically, they look the same, come from the same family, same religion, all that, right? But one is making 100 grand a year and one's making 80. Which one is women are women going to pick? Everything's the same. They're going to pick the one who's out earning them or who's earning 100K plus, right? The one who's earning more than the other. Find me a woman with that example who's going to pick the guy who's earning 80K over 100K when all other aspects are equal. Doesn't exist. Haven't seen it. Now, doesn't mean there aren't women who will not date. People date what they can attract. Okay? If a woman cannot attract a man who meets that criteria, she's not gonna end up dating that guy. And that's totally fine, right? You hear men all the time say, not all the time, but you hear men say, "Oh, I want to date a virgin." Okay, well, if you can't get a virgin, you're not going to end up dating a virgin. Period. So it's like want what you want, but in the end of the day, you're going to get what the market dictates, what you can bargain in the marketplace of dating, and that's just that, And I don't think it's an offensive definition. Should be an offensive definition because it's just the dating marketplace.
I guess my kind of follow up question to that is that a lot of your, or maybe an observation, a lot of your videos focus on kind of like how to obtain a
Mm-hmm.
man, but I haven't seen many
Over.
that are like, dog,
Yeah.
that are like, this is what, how a man should be treating you once you're in a relationship. It's a lot of content on, like, here's how to get the high value man,
Yes.
here's how to get him to want you, here's how to not get ghosted. But what about once you're in that relationship? You can
So
do
here's the
all
thing.
of the things and
Daniela, I'm not a relationship coach. I'm a dating coach. So, absolutely, when my clients get in a relationship, I will support them and provide them with relationship advice, but I don't promote myself as a relationship coach. I will say I have helped people go from the dating stage to the engagement stage and then to the marriage stage for a reason because I know that, the relationship advice that I provide, obviously there's something to it that's working, but I do not promote myself as a relationship coach. And part of the reason for that is because I think, you know, that getting the person to commit to you is sometimes the hardest battle for a lot of my clients and a lot of people who follow me. And finding the right person for you, that's really that's a big enough niche, to be honest, for me to focus on. I'm not trying to expand and be, a jack of all trades. I focus on helping people get to where they want to be. And the reality is, especially when we're talking about women, a lot of women who I encounter, a lot of women who follow me, a lot of women who I work with, this is what happens. They are told growing up, never depend on a man. They end up going to their careers and their workforce. They want to prove something to themselves, and I get it. And, it's a sense of accomplishment when you feel you are able to excel in your career. I'm a career girl. I get it. The challenge is then they wake up, they're either, maybe mid 30s, mid 40s, mid 50s, and they're like, oh, all my friends are married, or, time is ticking. I feel the pressures of the biological clock, and they try to go back into the dating marketplace. And it is very humbling because it's competitive, especially in major cities like LA, like Miami, but really it's competitive everywhere. I work with clients who also live in small towns, and try finding a pin in a haystack when you're in a small town. It's an even smaller dating pool. And so, for women in particular, at that level, when they have already had a lot of achievement and success in their careers, what I see and my observation is they do not want to date someone who is financially not either on their level or out earning them. Doesn't mean that that's what they get, but that is what they want. And if you, for example, are a woman, you're earning 100 grand a year, the likelihood that you're going to want to date a guy who's earning 70 grand a year is probably not that high. And so that's where the pickiness comes in. And the problem is, I mean, that's not, I understand it. I'm a woman too. I get it. But the problem is, by the way, happy International Women's Day. I didn't even say that to you.
Oh
But
yeah, happy International Women's Day.
thank you. The problem is when you go into the dating marketplace, you are now 35 competing with 25-year-olds, right? And life maybe has tainted you more. Maybe you have neglected your appearance because you put so much energy into your work life. So it is a different set of challenges, and that's where my advice comes in. Now, for men, it's different as well. I mean, a lot of men are looking for quality women. And, at the end of the day, I say you don't attract what you want, you attract what you are. Meaning, if you want a 10, you have to be a 10. If you want, someone who is, um, fit and in shape, you should be fit and in shape. If you want someone who's smart, make sure you're smart and well rounded. And so that is just, I think it's like a law of life. But to answer your question, my specialty is dating advice. So I stick to that.
Yeah, I think my issue is just with prioritizing, these qualities that a lot of people would consider superficial, I think. And that's not saying that they're not important. Obviously, it's important to shower and it's important to make a lot
Let's
of money. I think I'm just concerned about the personality
sure.
aspect of that because that's obviously so
You bring up a very
huge.
good point. You bring up a very good point. Let's back up. When we think about those four criteria of a high value man, the reason I don't bring in soft skills is because it is assumed that if you are legitimate and you have 500 plus people on LinkedIn endorsing you and saying that, oh my God, Jeff is such a great coworker and you've gotten promoted because you've reached that six-figure point, right? And you have a network of people who are, rooting for you and you are well groomed, that conveys a few things. Number one, discipline, right? You have the discipline to excel in life. You have the discipline to, be well groomed. Number two, integrity, right? If you're not doing shady business and a bunch of people are, promoting you on LinkedIn or IMDb or Forbes or whatever, organization or publication, then you probably are doing something right. You're going to have certain skills that are going to get you to that point, right? If you're earning six figures plus, not only do you have discipline, but you also have a work ethic. You are the type of person who is able to see something through. A lot of people are just, not, I don't want to say a lot, but there are many people in this world who they don't have that ability. And that is why a lot of the times they're destabilized in life. And so a lot of the skills that I think you're alluding to that women would want are things that a man who meets that four criteria is naturally going to have. But that is why I don't feel a need to really discuss those soft skills because it is implied within that framework that a man will have that. Does that make sense?
Yeah, that makes sense. I'd like to move on now to the Remy Bader controversy because I think it's important to talk about. So she duetted a video of yours where you said that if a woman wants to be able to attain a high value man, then, they also have to be a high value woman. One of those criteria being not having a high BMI. So people were not happy with that, which I can understand, because it was, essentially you saying that if someone is fat, then they're not worthy of having a high value man. And I guess I just want to know, like, what your perspective was on that situation. If you, I guess, have any regrets on what you said in that video that went viral.
Sure. Well, backing up, I believe my original words were, if you want to be with a high value man, feminine energy is not the only thing that is important. It is important, but it's not the only thing, right? And a lot of my coaching is centered around feminine and masculine energy. And part of the reason for that, Daniela, is when we talk about the type of woman I described just a few minutes ago, right? Career oriented, successful. Typically, to get to become that type of woman, you would need to have characteristics that are very much in line with what masculine energy is, right? Which masculine energy does not mean you are a man, manly looking or anything. It means you are goal oriented, you are direct, you are assertive, right? I would say I have a lot of masculine energy, for example. I don't think I look masculine, hope not, but that is, that is masculine energy at its core. And so, yes, feminine energy is important, but it doesn't stop there. And the comment that I was responding to said, you should have stopped at feminine energy, which I don't agree with. There's a lot more that goes into attracting a high value man than just being agreeable, right? That's a characteristic of feminine energy, or being somewhat more passive and community oriented. Appearance is extremely important to men in general, and studies show that, they prove that. And anyone who has a problem with me actually just saying that should get mad at the statistics in the studies. They shouldn't get mad at me. For example, there was a Columbia University study, and there was a speed dating event. They had men and women attend, and they asked the men and the women to rate the opposite sex on 3 criteria: attractiveness, intelligence, and ambition. And based on that, they also asked them a follow-up question: will you go on a second date with this person? Well, unsurprisingly, men rated appearance as being more important to them than women did. And they were more likely to go on a second date with a woman who they felt was attractive. Doesn't mean that women didn't value appearance, but women valued intellect, and they also prioritized going on a second date with men who came from affluent socioeconomic zip codes. For men, they didn't care. They actually preferred not to date women whose ambition exceeded theirs. Studies also show, and there are many studies on this, that when men are surveyed across the board, across many different studies, the consensus seems to be that men prefer women who have a BMI of 18 to 20. Doesn't mean they can get a woman who has a BMI of 18 to 20. That's what they prefer. And we're talking about high value men specifically. I coach a lot of them, work with a lot of them. They don't like to be they want to be with women who they feel is going to enhance their socioeconomic status. And it doesn't mean there aren't exceptions to the rule, which I also said in the video. It simply means that they want to be with a woman who's going to make them look good to their friends, and also who they're attracted to. And as those studies show and pointed to, and as I think common sense proves, typically, and the studies support this, women who have a low BMI are deemed as universally more attractive. Now, that is more pertaining to industrialized countries. I'm sure there are some countries that are more, in the developing side, that perhaps that is not the case. But in the industrialized world, it is. And, I can't speak on Remy Bader, but if she had a problem with that, she should get mad at the statistics or get mad at the men, But at the end of the day, the facts are the facts, the stats are the stats. And, I don't think there's anything wrong. And I certainly do not regret making that video. Do I think my tone was a little snappy? Sure. But at the end of the day, again, the meat and potatoes were there, and I don't regret it, because actually I have gotten such positive feedback from women saying, thank you, Nelly, for telling the truth when no one else will. Thank you for not being a part of this propaganda that, so many influencers bandwagon off of to profit off of people, where they just tell women what they want to hear and keep them in an echo chamber and reaffirm their confirmation bias, knowing that they'll be able to push a promo code or, some kind of branded deal. That is not helpful to women. That is not my definition of female empowerment, and I don't want to partake in it. And as far as that experience goes, I probably should, if I could go back in time, maybe I would have responded to Remy differently. I don't love my response to her, but I don't take back anything that I said, really, because I still believe with conviction that what I said was absolutely true. And the reality is we're living in a world, in a society where I think a lot of women, they think that men want the same things that they want. They date off of that criteria. I've seen it with my coaching, where women will say, "Oh, but he should want to date me because I make, $200,000 a year." Okay, that might be a cherry on top, but that is not a driver in what makes a man want to pursue a woman, especially a high value man. And the reason is high value men already have their money. They're not dating women for their wealth. They're dating women because they want something that she has. And the reason BMI, by the way, was brought up also, and of course, we can go back and forth. Is the BMI accurate? I did mention in my video that that is just one example of a framework. And I know I'm going on a tangent here, but I'm cutting to the chase. The reason BMI is a factor is because, or I shouldn't even say BMI necessarily, but overall body shape, weight goes into that, is because it conveys to men and it cues to men that a woman is healthy and fertile. And that is just primitively how we think. Just the same way, by the way, it's like you can tell women all day long, oh, you shouldn't date a man for his money, but women still will. They still want to, right? They still want to date the guy who's making the most amount of money and has the swag and all that. So I don't tell people again what they should want.
I just need to go back because someone asked such a good question.
Okay.
Do you think your orientation to topics like BMI reinforces beauty standards that many people are working to change? Because the biggest issue I saw with that is that I think there's like this huge, beautiful community of women and men on TikTok who are working to change these standards. And, as we know, just because someone's a certain size doesn't mean that they're unhealthy. It doesn't mean that like they're not working their ass off in the gym, and like that stuff honestly doesn't even really matter either. So I'm just wondering if you see that side or that
Like a correlation.
perspective
Well,
of the
I
issue.
think, as mentioned, the BMI is just one framework. Um, you know, you can look at the top nutritionists, fitness trainers in the world, doctors. You can't be mortally obese and healthy. It's impossible. So I do not actually believe that. Now, if you are mortally obese and you are
But we're not
working
talking
towards,
about, that's not what we're talking about. Like a high BMI person, that's not someone who's
well,
obese.
I
You
said
know what
high,
I
high on
mean?
the, I said high, high on the BMI chart. So the BMI chart goes health. It has a few factors. So first is underweight, then it's healthy, then it's overweight, then it's obese, and it's like more obese, right? So that's the spectrum. Now, again, like I said, BMI is just one framework, but of course, I applaud anyone who is trying to get healthy and change their life. That goes without saying. I think we need more of that. I love seeing those success stories. And I just want to say I've struggled with my weight my entire life. I come from a family where a lot of people, my father included, have type 2 diabetes. And it is something that runs in my family. And it is something that I, actively every day have to think about. But, and I've had my own weight loss journey. But my point is, um, I, I don't believe you can be, this is my personal opinion, and I think this is the opinion I've seen a lot of top fitness trainers talk about. I posted right after that whole thing, video with Jillian Michaels, who literally said, you cannot be overweight and healthy. It's the same, by the way, as saying, if you're smoking a pack of cigarettes a day, but you don't have a disease, that doesn't mean you're healthy. It doesn't mean you're healthy. It just means you don't have a disease. And I think people in our society, I think body positivity on its own is great when it is promoting inclusivity of different body shapes and body types. And that's why I said in my video, Daniela, it's not about a size or a number on a scale. It's about being healthy for your body type. In terms of it, for the people who want to attract a certain kind of man in society. If that's not your goal and you don't want to do that, then don't. And the way I compare it is if you wanted to get into Harvard, Harvard has certain qualifications, right? They want people who maybe have 4.0 GPAs, great recommendation letters, great resumes, essays that are awesome, SAT scores. If you don't want to put in the work to get into Harvard, you don't have to. You can go to a different school. But if Harvard is your goal, then you might have to actually do some introspection and and work on the areas that you need to improve on in order to get into that school. And of course, life is not fair. Everyone's dealt a different deck of cards, but people need to get real about what the dating marketplace is. And I think uh, it is disappointing when I see women lying to other women saying you don't have to change a damn thing and you can get what you've never gotten.
I don't know. I feel like the lines aren't so solid there. I'd at
In
least
what
like to
way?
hope.
In what
I'd
way?
at least in the way that, a quote high value man, or, yeah, someone who has a great job with a great personality and like is attractive. I mean, I've seen it on this app. You see people, men and women with different body sizes, like making it work, having a beautiful
Well, let's back
relationship.
up. Let's
It's
back up.
possible.
Let's back up. As mentioned, there are exceptions to the rule. There's also, I think, something that needs to be discussed that hasn't been discussed yet. If a woman and a man get together when he's young, let's say they're high school sweethearts, they marry at 21. She's a size 4, he's making 50 grand a year. 10 years into the relationship, 3 kids later, they're married. She's gained some weight, maybe she's a size 12. He's started making money. He's now making 100 grand a year. Is he in the high value club? Based on his improvements in life, potentially yes. Right? And that's the deception that single women are looking at. They're saying, "Oh, she's married to a guy who's technically high value, and she's a bigger size. Yeah, but what size was she when she met him? Or how much was he making when he met her?" Right? If you are single and you are a woman and you are going into the dating marketplace, you need to understand what you bring to the table in terms of what you think is valuable to men may not be the same as what men want a woman to bring to the table, because men and women approach dating with different set of criteria. They just do as a fundamental, and it is primitive and is biological. And yes, there are exceptions to the rule. And no, my goal is not to reduce women to their appearance. And I've said that a million times on my platform as well. My goal is absolutely not to, I've said it before. You can't, be gorgeous and have a shit personality and think you're going to get a great guy. You got to be the full package. But anyone who tells you that appearance doesn't matter is absolutely lying. Anyone who says that you can be high on the BMI charts and you will have just as easy of the time getting a high value man as a woman who is healthy on the BMI charts is also factually incorrect. Doesn't mean it's impossible. Just means it's not going to be as easy. And studies show that women who are in a healthy and lower BMI range have more bargaining power in the dating marketplace. That's just what the studies show. And again, people can get mad at that. People can get mad at me. But people really, if they have a problem with it, should get mad at the statistics or find someone who wants to love them for them. And maybe that doesn't mean that person is a high value man. It doesn't mean they're not a valuable human. It doesn't mean they're not a catch. It just means that they're probably not someone who is as desirable in the sexual dating marketplace as another man.
Moving on to feminine energy, because I think that's important to talk about. So you talk a lot about leaning into your feminine energy or being in your feminine energy
Yes.
when, you're dating. And you also talk about how you're an alpha female. And so I'm kind of like, isn't that a bit of a oxymoron, right? Because if you're not, like a proud, independent, like
Sure.
strong woman, why are you also trying to channel this feminine, submissive energy?
Well, actually, I'm not trying to channel that. I think, you know, in general, relationships are yin and yang. And women who I've worked with, the women who, come to me for help, typically are looking for a man, like I said, who is on their level or above, right? Typically, that implies financially and physically. So when I'm talking about, feminine energy, it is for women who have that criteria. And what happens is, and I do think a lot of this goes back to, the evolution of feminism. I believe, and I've observed that women put a lot of their energy into succeeding in their careers, and I would be one of them, and I admit that. And I'm proud of that, by the way. But the skills that are required to advance and excel in your career typically are associated with masculine energy: aggressiveness, directness, goal orientedness, assertiveness, right? Competitiveness. Because if think about it, if you want to get ahead in your career, you're going to need those skills. And so I do believe it is possible to shift out of your masculine energy into your feminine energy, right? But, and really what the difference is, and you mentioned the word submissive. Sure, submission can be a component of feminine energy, but it doesn't have to be part of the way that women approach feminine energy. Feminine energy simply means you are comfortable letting someone else take the lead and you are confident going to receiving mode. For example, if you're on a date with a man, I've seen a lot of women, insist on paying the bill because they want to prove their independence. Well, that's masculine energy, right? Letting a man court you takes confidence. And being able to shift into your feminine energy, which is what I teach in my course and what I teach a lot in my content, is simply knowing how and when to, take your foot off the pedal a little bit. And so an example of that would also be, if you, and I say it too, it takes confidence because if you are so used to taking the reins and everything in your life, it's actually nice to let someone else take the reins in your dating life. One less thing for you to plan. Why do you need to pick the restaurant? Why do you need to pick up the bill? Let him do that. He wants to do that. Men like to be around women who make them feel like men. And so when we talk about feminine energy, we're not talking about submission. We're talking about, again, letting women or helping women go into receiving mode. And it's possible. I am certainly very much in my masculine energy when it comes to my career. But when I'm not working, I do like to shift into a more passive role, I suppose, because I don't want to be, running the dating dynamic, picking the restaurant, picking him up, picking up the bill, picking the table, ordering off the menu, and even, I don't want to be opening his door. It's just, these are little behavioral changes that women can make that don't require personality changes that will not only benefit them, but they will, I believe, benefit the goal that they're working toward. Because again, alpha men want to be in a position where they can take the lead. And I would say beta men do too, to be honest. Men in general like to be around women who, again, allow them to be in their masculine energy, allow them to, tap into that hero instinct of wanting to save the day and wanting to be of service. And if a woman is doing everything, a man's going to be like, what do I have to offer her? And he's going to go find another girl.
If that's not authentically who you are, though, then don't you think that's kind of forced on the woman's part a bit?
Well, I hear what you're saying.
And like in a little bit down the road,
I believe
they
I
might
believe
feel
most women
exhausted or the person. Yeah, sorry, continue.
I believe most women do have a divine feminine inside of them. I believe everyone has a combination of masculine and feminine energy, just might be in different ratios. And it doesn't mean that a woman needs to change herself. It simply means let someone else take the lead, right? And if you feel that that is too big of a shift for you, okay, good luck. Go into the dating marketplace. And again, do what you've always done and see if you can pull anyone different. you know I know that these methods work because I work with men and I work with women and I hear the feedback. And it's a very simple they're very simple behavioral shifts. And if you understand the mindset and you have a motive, then it works. It's not about changing yourself. It's not about minimizing yourself or reducing yourself or any of that. It's about learning how to go from being a woman in a boardroom to a lady. Does that make sense? And at the end of the day, if a woman has a problem with that, go find a man who wants you for you. They're out there. But the types of men that I hear a lot of these women want, they do want women who are going to get on their program. They do want women who are going to let them take the lead. And if a woman does not want to do what is required to be with that type of man, then she can date another kind of man. That's totally fine. And it doesn't mean that, she needs to, again, reduce herself, change herself. No. And this is interesting too. They did studies, Daniela, where, again, I mentioned the Columbia speed dating one, but they did one at Chicago Booth School of Business as well. And essentially they asked, the women what they did to, get with certain men. And a lot of women said they actually downplayed their ambition. Well, and that's problematic. Women should not be downplaying their ambition to attract men. I believe they should be maintaining their ambition and finding men who either meet them at that level or above, right? But this is another issue in society is people settling. And there is, also studies where on Tinder, it's like 90% of women are swiping on the top 10% of men. What that tells you, what that should tell you is women actually don't want to date men who are on their level. They want to date men who are above. They want to date men who they feel are financially and physically superior to them, right? Why? Because they know that all the other girls want that guy. That's where the status comes in. That's where the dating marketplace comes in. If if I if most women are just looking for a guy who's going to love them, who's a catch for all intents and purposes, but not necessarily like the top 1% of men on dating apps, then they should be swiping on people who are their equals, but they don't. And that is reflected in also why I believe it is most 1/3 of men under 30 are virgins or something like that. So, there's a huge disparity happening on dating apps. And I think people need to, just look for love because that will, I think, even out the playing field for men and women. But unfortunately, like I said, women want to date above. And so women are driven by socioeconomic status, prestige, provider, and protector, right? That is key. And men are driven by, other things like vitality. Is she going to be a good mother? Is she attractive? Is she, nurturing? So there are different criteria. And of course there are exceptions to the rule. But once again, the studies support that this is how people date.
Thank you for that. I think we need to be moving on to the questions
Okay.
from the audience because we're running out of time, but I'm going to pick out some of my favorites. Someone asked, do you make the men you work with prove their income?
No, because I charge people flat rate. So that is when it comes to dating coaching, I charge people flat rate. When it comes to matchmaking, it's also flat rate, but it's yeah, typically there's a minimum that a man would need to earn. I'm not going to disclose that on live, but that is typically with matchmaking. You have to,
And is
meet a
that
certain
because
network
you're
requirement.
using, is that because you're matching these men with your female clients?
Yes, but it's also because matchmaking is expensive. It's a premium. Yeah.
Someone
People who are
said,
looking for a matchmaker are looking for like a personal concierge. So it's it's dedicated, personalized, so it is more expensive significantly.
someone said, do you work with anyone other than cisgender people? And I'm going to add to that heterosexual people.
Um, yes. So I don't work with currently. I mean, I'm not opposed to it. If a transgender person wanted to work with me and they were, the right type of clientele for me and I felt I could help them, I certainly would. I do have gay clients, so absolutely. People in the LGBTQIA community, but currently my clients are cisgender, to my knowledge.
So for the non-heteronormative relationships, someone asked, does the definition of high value change?
Well, it's interesting. What I find, so for men, I would say no, because, with the difference really that I've noticed and observed I'm just going to say the gay community is, again, the primal needs are there, but it's more dictated by masculine versus feminine energy. So, men, for example, um, in the gay community tend to be less monogamous than lesbians. Lesbians are like the most monogamous creatures on the planet, at least according to studies. Of course, there are exceptions to the rule, but for the most part. And it is interesting, because you do see a lot of parallels uh, between what I just described. For example, if you look at lesbians, they are very much driven by a desire to be secure, and so yeah, having it's not that they date based on income. I would say that it's very different. But of course, if you have like a lesbian who's more in her masculine energy versus feminine energy, she might be the one who is footing the bill. She might be the one who's picking the place. But I think typically what I've observed, and it is very much varied and nuanced in those communities, is, you know, there's a lot of interchangeability. With men, gay men, my observation has been in working with them that, for example, I have one client who is a high value man. He happens to be gay, high level executive. He wants the boy toy. He wants the cute little Ken doll, you know, and I think that really plays into, you know, what I was talking about with women. And it goes back to, he also wants someone who's more in their feminine energy. You know, he wants to be the alpha taking charge. Of course, you know, that sounds heteronormative gender roles, but that is more masculine versus feminine energy type of thing. So that is where it gets a little nuanced within those communities, but it all kind of goes back to primal needs. And, you know, like I said, lesbians are monogamous, very monogamous, typically. With gay men, they tend to be, there's more infidelity with gay men than there is in any other group in society. And, you know, I think that just is because men are wired differently than women. And when we talk about equality, we're not talking about equality in every sense of the word. We're talking about societal equality, right? But men are wired differently. They are wired to spread their seed. That's why there's a lot of cheating in open relationships with gay men. There's not a lot of that with lesbians. Okay, I don't know too many lesbians who are open relationships. I'm sure they're out there, but yeah, it's nuanced, it's different, but in a lot of ways, it's also the same. And it's more difficult with those clients sometimes too, because you know, they make up less than 5% of the total population. So it's, I think, difficult for them to find someone, especially if they're not in a city where there is a big gay community, right? Obviously, it's easier for someone to, you know, if you're in Miami or LA, yeah, a lot of gays around here. But if you're in Mississippi or Alabama and you are in that community, of course, it's going to be more challenging.
Someone asked, why use language like masculine and feminine energy when it perpetuates toxic masculinity, gender norms, etc.?
Well, I don't think it perpetuates toxic masculinity at all. And I think the reason I use that language is because it's just language. There's definitions for it. You know, this all goes back to certain theories that I studied at Columbia. For example, Hoff studies theory, right? There are so many different theories that all pertain to masculine and feminine energy. In certain parts of the world, they call it yin and yang, right? It's just words, but people in our society get so hung up on the language, the verbiage, because they associate masculine with men and feminine with women, and that within itself is hypocritical. Whoever asked that question, and as far as perpetuating gender norms, well, a lot of people revert back to their gender norms and want that, right? You can have a female CEO and she's still going to want a man for the most part, the ones who I've come across, who, again, are out earning them, who are going to, you know, be the leader. Otherwise, a lot of the times those women will not respect the man. That's why they don't date down financially. Just like men, a lot of times want to revert back to the gender norms too. They say they want an independent woman, but when she stops making him a coffee and an omelet every day, they get pissed off. So, you know, again, if people think that that is somehow perpetuating something that's toxic, talk to the rest of society. Don't talk to me. And I don't think that it is at all. I think if anything, it's just words, and people shouldn't be, you know, getting their panties in a bunch over words that are really harmless.
Someone asked, is her personal business success rate purely based on hookups, or does she track longer term?
No, I mean, success is really, it varies individual. Success to me is my client happy? Do they get what they wanted? Are they no longer wanting to work with me because they have finally found someone who they feel meets their needs? To me, that's success, you know? And some people, you know, are not looking for marriage. Plenty of clients who've been married once, twice, they don't want to get married again. They just want someone to spend their life with, or even someone to, you know, enjoy their time with for a certain season. So success is really varied on the individual. And success, by the way, can even mean, hey, Nelly, thank you so much. Thanks to your course and your, you know, instilling confidence in me, I left that abusive relationship. Hey, Nelly, thanks so much. Thanks to your advice, I finally found the confidence to put myself out there. Thanks to your advice, I'm at the gym working my ass off because I now have the formula that I, you know, have been looking for. And now I'm engaged to a guy the man of my dreams who I was never able to get with before. Hey, Nelly, thank you so much, because if it weren't for you, I'd still be single and wondering why my ex-wife left me. But now I'm in Jamaica with a, beautiful woman, and I feel like I've gotten my second wind. Those are all examples of success.
To end our conversation here, I have before we talked, I came up with some theoretical dating situations. I wanted to know
Oh,
what you personally would do if you were dating and came across someone like this. So,
okay.
the first one is a guy makes 90,000 a year as a special needs teacher. I don't know where this would be possible. It's theoretical situations. And is the funniest person you've ever met and good looking too. Do you give him a
Mm-hmm.
shot? This is someone who,
Do I
you
myself
know,
want to date him,
well, sure, because you're
or do I want
someone
to work with
who,
him?
no, no, no. Do you want to date him? If you're someone who's looking for a high value man or, has those sort of
Well,
criteria in your head.
what I'm looking for is very, that's my, I never said I was looking for a high value man. I may be, I may not be, but that's not what I said. For myself personally, is that what we're asking? Me, myself, Nelly?
Yeah.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
My priority for my dating life, I always say, and I coach on this too, successful relationship, you need chemistry and compatibility. Now, compatibility is, are we good on paper? Chemistry is, do we have a spark? Do I want to rip your clothes off? Do I have the hots for you? And you really need both of those things, I think, for long lasting love. So, um, for myself personally, there's a lot more that goes into deciding on whether I would date someone or not than what their job is and if they can crack a few jokes. So the answer to that is, I don't know. I don't know. I mean, what family does he come from? What are his religious or spiritual beliefs? Do we have similar lifestyles? Is he a drinker? Is he a smoker? These are all questions that come to mind. So I can't answer that question on the basis of three criteria. Now, that's just me.
So,
Maybe someone else has less criteria. But for me, I look at a person through all angles. I have not, I would say to people, you need to know what your deal breakers are and your non negotiables are. I know what mine are. If this person is a special needs teacher, hilarious, cracks some jokes, 90K a year. Well, how old is he? Does he have kids? Has he been married? What is his ambition in life? Does he want to open a school for special needs kids, or does
what
he
if
want to
all
continue
of the
working at
other
a
things
school his life?
what if all of the other things are exactly match up, but he's not making six figures yet, I guess is what I'm getting at. Like
Well, how
when
old
I
is
was describing
if
this
he's a
person, I was
55
just
year old if he's a 55-year-old special needs teacher and he's been making 90K only the past 2 years, and he was, like, I need more context.
I'm telling you
You
that
know,
it's someone that I promise you
I'm just giving
like
you the
every
runaround
other
here.
factor would be exactly what you want. It's just he's not
I don't know
making
what I want
the
because I haven't
salary.
met what I want in human form yet. Do you see what I'm
Okay.
saying?
Okay.
So it's difficult because it's not a person, it's a feeling. For myself personally, because obviously that's the direction we're going in here, and I know I'm being coy and that's on purpose, but for myself personally, I prioritize how someone makes me feel. So if I feel like I am on top of the world around someone, a lot of the stuff that I say that I want goes out the window. And I'd say most women probably operate that way as well. I'm self aware enough to admit it. So if someone is lighting up my life and they're not making that much money, but I'm like, you know what, this is my soulmate. If I'm confident enough in my ability to succeed financially, because I want to send my kids to, great schools and all that, then perhaps, it can work. But I will say this. Typically, I cannot date someone who I'm not impressed by, who I don't respect. I would say most women also probably operate that way. And so for me, the types of people who I am impressed by and respect are people who are outstanding in their field. And, people who I think are very worldly and cultured and um, just kind, and also make me feel grate my own skin because I get the side eye from a lot of people. And so I need someone who's on my team, Team Nelly, unquestionably. So if this special needs teacher is going to be my number one cheerleader and take me out to nice dinners and give me foot rubs and all that, and is nice to my dog, you know what? I'll give him a date. But if not, and also he has, also think about, what are like, there's so many factors that go into compatibility. Compatibility, is, again, is he a vegan? Because I'm not dating a vegan. I like steak, a lot of it. Is he throwing back three, glasses of vodka every night? That's not going to work for me. Is he a morning person? Does he like to go on hikes? Because I like to go on hikes. Um, you know, there's so many things that go into it. It's a feeling, not a person. But the compatibility absolutely needs to be there. Based on what you said, it doesn't sound like someone I would typically date, if I'm honest. But never say never. I've been surprised by myself in life many times. Many times. There have been people who I'm like, I wouldn't date someone like that. And then poof, someone like that comes around. I'm like, oh, here I am. And, that's life.
So with the emphasis on the high value man stuff for your clients and like for the TikTok followers, is that just like a jumping off point, or is that based on all of the statistics you were talking about?
I'm unclear about what you're asking.
Yeah, no, so like is that the minimum? Like okay, first we need to have these four aspects because most women want a high value man, and then we'll go for that feeling. Like, is it a filter system? Like, why do you put such a huge emphasis on it if you just said that
Well,
it's the feeling that's the
no, no,
most
no. I'm talking
important?
about myself. I'm talking about myself,
Okay.
right? You
Okay.
asked me about myself. Um,
Mm-hmm.
and like I said, there's still certain criteria that needs to be there. So
Mm-hmm.
when you ask me what I'm looking for, if I would date that special needs teacher, I don't know. You gave me three criteria. In fairness, I know you were trying to get some clarity, but I would say my goals are a little different maybe than perhaps other women's goals. But regardless of that, uh, the definition for a high value man is dictated by the sexual dating marketplace. It's dictated by um, what men have the most options in society, which men have the most bargaining power in that mating marketplace, right? Men who meet those four criteria always do. And actually, I'll go as far as say men inherently know that. Okay, women, again, are we having a conversation about why? If I made a video saying, "Hey, ladies, you should date a low value man," most people would probably be like, "What are you talking about? I don't want to date a low value man," right? Doesn't mean that they can get a high value man, but most single women want that, right? And so I'm giving them advice based on what they want, not based on what I think they should have. I already told you, I think women should date someone who, first of all meets their, how they have compatibility and chemistry with, but also someone who, they feel they share a love with. And that might come in a different package. But with all due respect, I understand that, some people have certain criteria. Some people want to date someone who's extremely Christian and goes to church every Sunday. Am I going to be like, why don't you want to date a Jew? Why don't you want to date a Muslim? Well, they don't want that. So I'm not going to push it, you know? If a woman wants to date a guy who's 6 feet tall, because that's just what she likes, I'm not going to be like, but this guy is 5'9". She wants to date a guy who's 6 feet tall. Period. End of story. I can show her, oh, well, maybe this option, but, weighing the pros and cons, and maybe she'll be willing to give it a shot. But maybe she won't. And maybe that's a non negotiable, and that is perfectly fine.
My last question before we leave, because I realize we forgot to cover this.
Okay.
So maybe we do a long story short, but so you went on Tinks's podcast in January and they didn't end up publishing. So did you get any extra information on why that happened, or like, is there anything from your experience that you think impacted that decision?
Well, I went on her podcast early February, February 3rd to be exact. I did not receive any information, further information from her team. So yeah, I don't know, but I am, I'm very, uh, very much comfortable with my decision to put that situation out there because I think it's important to hold people accountable. And I really think it's disrespectful when people try to talk a big game and discredit me or speak negatively about me, my coaching. She said one thing on her episode 93. She said, a lot of her coaching in terms of how to attract a high value man is based on appearance. It's actually not true. I actually made a video saying sometimes feminine energy matters more. That video is still up there, right? So that is actually a lie. But, that just tells me that she clearly did not research me. That's fine. But, I went on her podcast, said what I had to say. People get offended when their feelings are confronted with the facts. Okay, but get mad at the statistics. Don't get mad at me. And I'm not going to stand for hypocrisy. I'm silent, or I'm sick of being silenced by people. She's one of many, by the way, people who have tried to silence me. She just happened to be, I guess the Achilles heel in this case, where it was like, enough is enough, but this is not the first time. And I have a feeling it probably won't be the last, unfortunately, but I'm confident in my ability to articulate my position. I think anyone with common sense, it's very obvious, will agree with, what I have to say. And
Well,
if not, my challenge is to anyone who disagrees with me, find me a statistic that disproves anything that I said.
guys, come on, quickly. You have 1 minute. 1 minute. Post the
Hmm.
URLs. Okay. Thank you
You think
so
I'm
much,
wrong?
Nelly.
Out logic me. Out logic me. I'm here. I'm waiting. I've
This,
been waiting. It's been 2 years. You know what
I
people do? This is what happens, Daniela. They don't like what they hear because it contradicts their confirmation bias. Either their father lied to them or society, their friends lie to them. I get it, it's just human nature. They get mad because someone like me tells them something that they inherently know is true, but they refuse to accept. And instead of accepting it or trying to disprove it with logic, all they can say is, you're mean, you're a bully, you're misogynistic, you're this, you're that, you're that. It's like, no, I'm not actually any of those things. Not any of those things. Am I stern? Yeah. Am I strong in my convictions? Okay, sure. And I'm a pretty nice person actually when you get to know me. And I have a good sense of humor. But I'm not offended by people who are irrational and easily triggered because I would not want to trade places with people like that. I know that they're on the wrong side of the equation because the numbers don't lie.
Thank you so much, Nelly. This has been awesome. Everyone, please tune in next week for episode 5 of Let's Talk It Out. And there will likely be some clips. If you guys came in late or early, whatever, left early, there will be some clips that you can watch after this. Thank
Well, we
you.
should definitely do this
Bye.
again. I feel like this was great. This was great. So thank you for having me on, Daniela and BuzzFeed.
Yes, of course.